monetary loop. Now, I'm going to present about facts and issues which were relevant to the case. Our group's article is titled SEC Issues New Guidance Regarding Russia Sanctions and Public Company Disclosures. The war between Russia and Ukraine began with the air and missile attack on Ukrainian military. Through a video message, the president of Ukraine reported that there are 137 deaths. It is not the first time. Russia has already attacked Ukraine in 2014. The pro-Putin took control of the largest parts of eastern Ukraine and they have been batting the Ukrainian army ever since. Now, in 2022, due to the conflict, the United States announced that the broad sanction on Russia. As the crisis approaches the 3-month mark, the businesses throughout the world has continued to handle sanctions complaints. To that aim, the SEC recently released some recommendations on how firms affected by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The companies should explain how the crisis is impacting their operations, including impact of developing sanctions. For example, the material issue. Companies should report about their process, investment opportunities, or workers which may be affected by the crisis. The division also advised the impacted firms' financial results may need to include information about the penalty. Includes corporate assets, inventory valuation, or ability to collect on contracts. Companies also should be conscious about MD&A regulations and report known risks that might have a significant effect on the company's operating results or financial position. So, both United States and European Union have imposed extraordinary sanctions against Russia and Belarus in an attempt to isolate Russia's economy. In conclusion, the case shows that the poor negotiation and conflict management which can negatively impact to the world economy.
Hello, my name is Nurul Izzah binti Muhammad Fauzi with metric card number is B0619101126. I would like to present about identify key areas, problems, concern, interest on conflict and issue for the case study. First, we go to problems on conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Russia reinforced its possession of a key foothold on the Black Sea by conquering Crimea in 2014. Supporting the separatists has enhanced in negotiating leverage with Ukraine, at least momentarily. Russia may project power further into the Mediterranean, Middle East, and North Africa, where it has had little impact. Putin planned a full-scale invasion in 2022, crossing into Ukraine with 200,000 soldiers from the South Crimea, East Russia, and North Belarus. Russian soldiers have suffered from low morale, inadequate supplies, ill-conceived military plan. Russia may use newly captured territory as negotiating tools in peace talks. Next, about concern on conflict between Russia and Ukraine, said President of America Joe Biden about the road to a peace agreement through negotiation between Russia and Ukraine. Ukrainian President Petro Zelensky has rejected call for Ukraine to hand up Crimea and parts of Donbass to Russia. A Ukrainian polling group concluded last month that 94% of Ukrainians approve of his handling of the conflict. The rating group is keeping track of public opinion throughout the war. Biden hints that the US will provide Ukraine with highly competent defensive weaponry. The rocket system suggested by Biden will be able to carry munition with a 50-mile range. A worldwide rejection of Russia's aggression and support for its victim self-defense is the first step toward peace. Next, about interest on conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Russia and Ukraine have strong cultural, economic, and political ties, and Ukraine is an important part of Russia's identity and global visions. So, what are Russians' broad interests in Ukraine? Here I listed about that. Number 1, family ties. 2, the Russian diaspora. 3, superpower image. 4, Crimea. 5, trade. 6, energy. And the last one about influence in politics.
Now my part is how do they handle the conflict. For problems concerns their interest in handling and resolving the conflict. As the crisis approached the 3-month mark, business throughout the world continue to handle sanction compliance. According to the National Law Review, the SEC has released some recommendations on how corporations affected by Russian invasion of Ukraine should explain how the crisis is affecting their operation, including the impact of shifting sanctions. To address this challenge and concerns, the Security Action Commission (SEC) of the United States government has devised a number of solutions to begin. They suggested that impacted firms' financial result report may need to include information connected to the penalties, such as whether they have harmed company asset inventory evaluation or the capacity to collect on contracts. The SEC also stated said that firms, regardless of whether they have activities in Russia, Belarus, or Ukraine, should report any significant problems linked to elevated cybersecurity risk or volatility in commodities trading price. Next, we talk about the evaluate less visible possible material risks and repercussions. Despite the vast range of information categories that the government urged corporations to examine when making disclosure decisions, it cautioned that the list was not exhaustive. Companies should have evaluate less visible possible material risks and repercussions. Last but not least is about the anticipated future sensation development. Companies should apprehend not only the current extent of the restriction but also anticipated future sensation development and their potential direct and be significantly impacted by Ukrainian must continue to watch and any else events, especially the indirect materials implication of the resultant sensation of Finland's decision to join NATO. Thank you.
Why that strategy was chosen to resolve the conflict? First, this strategy may be beneficial if all countries offer the rooms. Nevertheless, if any issues is not handled, it may worse. The term collaborative approach refers to the process of combining ideas and effectively applying them to solve issues. This can be beneficial if both sides are concerned about the same topics, but collaboration is still the most successful techniques. Second, to establish a common agreement that benefits all parties. It necessitates a reasoned discussion in which both sides accept the result. The sides endeavor to persuade one another to accept their response and come up with the best solutions that everyone can agree. All nations, including Russia, have responsibility to play in resolving problems with countries involved in the current war. Lastly, be strengthened if the issues are addressed. As other nations gain confidence, their performance improve, and they will get confidence from Russia. So, negotiations are an important part of settling problems and have a positive and indirect impact on international relations. Negotiations are often carried out at a higher level, such as when entering into a commercial deal and establishing a mutual advantageous agreement.
Practice. Communications competence is a critical aspect in conflict management. As a proof, I believe that the organizations involved should prioritize negotiation skill training in their communication skill training program. The second point is emotional intelligence. Emotions are highly significant throughout the negotiations process and may be used as a tool to obtain a mutually beneficial agreement. The third point is planning. A well-prepared plan considers two factors, which is the first one is the zone of possible agreement, which is ZOPA, and the best alternative to a negotiations agreement, which is BATNA. The next point is value creations. In order to have a successful negotiations, both sides should examine how to maximize the general interest rather than self-interest. The last point is strategy, an effective negotiation strategy that helps you recognize what is your bargaining chips. An effective negotiation strategy that consider with your roles, understanding your value and advantage. The next part of reflections is the important knowledge of this case. The first point is communications between two parties. Communications plays a crucial role in a conflict management. Observations have shown that poor communications typically result in misunderstanding and ultimate conflicts. The second point is allow each side to agree and make their points of view known. Understanding where the other parties is coming from help both to perceive the other in a different light and to adjust their behavior toward each other accordingly. The third point is discussion between two parties. The aim of this stage is for the representative of each party to present their points and to be able to see if there is an agreement. A good negotiations of the issues require that every participant has good listening, questioning, and understanding skills. The last point is manage conflict in the organizations and to resolve conflict. negotiations and conflict management are the only ways to provide fair and correct suggestions for any conflict.